Complete Works of Swami Vevekananda. Volume 4 Addresses on Bhakti Yoga. The Preparation. The best definition given of Bhakti Yoga is perhaps embodied in the verse, "May that love undying which the non-discriminating have for the fleeting objects of the senses never leave this heart of mine, of me who seek after thee." We see what a strong love men, who do not know any better, have for sense objects, for money, dress, their wives, children, friends, and possessions. What a tremendous clinging they have to all these things. So in the above prayer the sage says, "I will have that attachment, that tremendous clinging, only to thee." This love, when given to God, is called Bhakti. Bhakti is not destructive. It teaches us that no one of the faculties we have has been given in vain, that through them is the natural way to come to liberation. Bhakti does not kill out our tendencies, it does not go against nature, but only gives it a higher and more powerful direction. How naturally we love objects of the senses. We cannot but do so, because they are so real to us. We do not ordinarily see anything real about higher things, but when a man has seen something real beyond the senses, beyond the universe of senses, the idea is that he can have a strong attachment, only it should be transferred to the object beyond the senses, which is God. And when the same kind of love that has before been given to sense objects is given to God, it is called Bhakti. According to the sage Ramanujha, the following are the preparations for getting that intense love. The first is Viveka. It is a very curious thing, especially to people of the West. It means, according to Ramanujha, discrimination of food. Food contains all the energies that go to make up the forces of our body and mind. It has been transferred, and conserved, and given new directions in my body, but my body and the mind have nothing essentially different from the food that I ate. Just as the force and matter we find in the material world become body and mind in us, so, essentially, the difference between body and mind and the food we eat is only in manifestation. It being so, that out of the material particles of our food we construct the instrument of thought, and that from the finer forces lodged in these particles we manufacture thought itself, it naturally follows that both this thought and the instrument will be modified by the food we take. There are certain kinds of food that produce a certain change in the mind. We see it every day. There are other sorts which produce a change in the body, and in the long run have a tremendous effect on the mind. It is a great thing to learn. A good deal of the misery we suffer is occasioned by the food we take. You find that after a heavy and indigestible meal it is very hard to control the mind. It is running all the time. There are certain foods which are exciting. If you eat such food, you find that you cannot control the mind. It is obvious that after drinking a large quantity of wine, or other alcoholic beverage, a man finds that his mind would not be controlled. It runs away from his control. According to Ramanujha, there are 3 things in food we must avoid. First, there is jati, the nature or species of the food, that must be considered. All exciting food should be avoided, as meat, for instance. This should not be taken because it is by its very nature impure. We can get it only by taking the life of another. We get pleasure for a moment, and another creature has to give up its life to give us that pleasure. Not only so, but we demoralize other human beings. It would be rather better if every man who eats meat killed the animal himself. But, instead of doing so, society gets a class of persons to do that business for them, for doing which, it hates them. In England no butcher can serve on jury, the idea being that he is cruel by nature. Who makes him cruel? Society. If we did not eat beef and mutton, there would be no butchers. Eating meat is only allowable for people who do very hard work, and who are not going to be bhaktas. But if you are going to be bhaktas, you should avoid meat. Also, all exciting foods, such as onions, garlic, and all evil-smelling food, as sauerkraut. Any food that has been standing for days, till its condition is changed. Any food whose natural juices have been almost dried up, any food that is malodorous, should be avoided. The next thing that is to be considered as regards food is still more intricate to Western minds. It is what is called ashraya, that is, the person from whom it comes. This is rather a mysterious theory of the Hindus. The idea is that each man has a certain aura around him, and whatever thing he touches, a part of his character, as it were, his influence, is left on it. It is supposed that a man's character emanates from him, as it were, like a physical force, and whatever he touches is affected by it. So we must take care who touches our food when it is cooked. A wicked or immoral person must not touch it. One who wants to be a Bhakta must not dine with people whom he knows to be very wicked, because their infection will come through the food. The other form of purity to be observed is nimitta, or instruments. Dirt and dust must not be in food. Food should not be brought from the market and placed on the table unwashed. We must be careful also about the saliva and other secretions. The lips ought never, for instance, to be touched with the fingers. The mucous membrane is the most delicate part of the body, and all tendencies are conveyed very easily by the saliva. Its contact, therefore, is to be regarded as not only offensive, but dangerous. Again, we must not eat food, half of which has been eaten by someone else. When these things are avoided in food, it becomes pure. Pure food brings a pure mind, and in a pure mind is a constant memory of God. Let me tell you the same thing as explained by another commentator, Shankara Acharya, who takes quite another view. This word for food, in Sanskrit, is derived from the root, meaning to gather. Ara means gathered in. What is his explanation? He says, the passage that when food is pure the mind will become pure really means that, lest we become subject to the senses, we should avoid the following. First, as to attachment. We must not be extremely attached to anything excepting God. See everything, do everything, but be not attached. As soon as extreme attachment comes, a man loses himself, he is no more master of himself, he is a slave. If a woman is tremendously attached to a man, she becomes a slave to that man. There is no use in being a slave. There are higher things in this world than becoming a slave to a human being. Love and do good to everybody, but do not become a slave. In the first place, attachment degenerates us, individually, and in the second place, makes us extremely selfish. Owing to this failing, we want to injure others to do good to those we love. A good many of the wicked deeds done in this world are really done through attachment to certain persons. So all attachment excepting that for good works should be avoided. But love should be given to everybody. Then as to jealousy, there should be no jealousy in regard to objects of the senses. Jealousy is the root of all evil, and a most difficult thing to conquer. Next, delusion. We always take one thing for another, and act upon that, with the result that we bring misery upon ourselves. We take the bad for the good. Anything that titillates our nerves for a moment we think as the highest good, and plunge into it immediately, but find, when it is too late, that it has given us a tremendous blow. Every day, we run into this error, and we often continue in it all our lives. When the senses, without being extremely attached, without jealousy, or without delusion, work in the world, such work or collection of impressions is called pure food, according to Shankaracharya. When pure food is taken, the mind is able to take in objects and think about them without attachment, jealousy or delusion. Then the mind becomes pure, and then there is constant memory of God in that mind. It is quite natural for one to say that Shankara's meaning is the best. But I wish to add that one should not neglect Ramanuja's interpretation either. It is only when you take care of the real material food that the rest will come. It is very true that mind is the master, but very few of us are not bound by the senses. We are all controlled by matter. And as long as we are so controlled, we must take material aids. And then, when we have become strong, we can eat or drink anything we like. We have to follow Ramanuja in taking care about food and drink. At the same time we must also take care about our mental food. It is very easy to take care about material food, but mental work must go along with it. Then gradually our spiritual self will become stronger and stronger, and the physical self less assertive. Then will food hurt you no more. The great danger is that every man wants to jump at the highest ideal, but jumping is not the way. That ends only in a fall. We are bound down here, and we have to break our chain slowly. This is called Viveka, discrimination. The next is called Vimoksha, freedom from desires. He who wants to love God must get rid of extreme desires, desire nothing except God. This world is good so far as it helps one to go to the higher world. The objects of the senses are good so far as they help us to attain higher objects. We always forget that this world is a means to an end, and not an end itself. If this were the end, we should be immortal here in our physical body. We should never die. But we see people every moment dying around us, and yet, foolishly, we think we shall never die. And from that conviction we come to think that this life is the goal. That is the case with 99% of us. This notion should be given up at once. This world is good so far as it is a means to perfect ourselves. And as soon as it has ceased to be so, it is evil. So wife, husband, children, money and learning are good so long as they help us forward. But as soon as they cease to do that, they are nothing but evil. If the wife help us to attain God, she is a good wife. So with a husband or a child. If money help a man to do good to others, it is of some value. But if not, it is simply a mass of evil, and the sooner it is got rid of, the better. The next is abhyasa, practice. The mind should always go towards God. No other things have any right to withhold it. It should continuously think of God, though this is a very hard task. Yet it can be done by persistent practice. What we are now is the result of our past practice. Again, practice makes us what we shall be. So practice the other way. One sort of turning round has brought us this way, turn the other way and get out of it as soon as you can. Thinking of the senses has brought us down here. To cry one moment, to rejoice the next, to be at the mercy of every breeze, slave to everything. This is shameful, and yet we call ourselves spirits. Go the other way, think of God. Let the mind not think of any physical or mental enjoyment, but of God alone. When it tries to think of anything else, give it a good blow, so that it may turn round and think of God. As oil poured from one vessel to another falls in an unbroken line, as chimes coming from a distance fall upon the ear as one continuous sound, so should the mind flow towards God in one continuous stream. We should not only impose this practice on the mind, but the senses too should be employed. Instead of hearing foolish things, we must hear about God. Instead of talking foolish words, we must talk of God. Instead of reading foolish books, we must read good ones which tell of God. The greatest aid to this practice of keeping God in memory is, perhaps, music. The Lord says to Narada, the great teacher of Bhakti, I do not live in heaven, nor do I live in the heart of the yogi, but where my devotees sing my praise, there am I. Music has such tremendous power over the human mind. It brings it to concentration in a moment. You will find the dull, ignorant, low, brute-like human beings, who never steady their mind for a moment at other times, when they hear attractive music, immediately become charmed and concentrated. Even the minds of animals, such as dogs, lions, cats, and serpents, become charmed with music. The next is kriya, work. Doing good to others. The memory of God will not come to the selfish man. The more we come out and do good to others, the more our hearts will be purified, and God will be in them. According to our scriptures, there are 5 sorts of work, called the Fivefold Sacrifice. First, study. A man must study every day something holy and good. Second, worship of God, angels, or saints, as it may be. Third, our duty to our forefathers. Fourth, our duty to human beings. Man has no right to live in a house himself, until he builds for the poor also, or for anybody who needs it. The householder's house should be open to everybody that is poor and suffering. Then he is a real householder. If he builds a house only for himself and his wife to enjoy, he will never be a lover of God. No man has the right to cook food only for himself. It is for others, and he should have what remains. It is a common practice in India that when the season's produce first comes into the market, such as strawberries or mangoes, a man buys some of them and gives to the poor. Then he eats of them. And it is a very good example to follow in this country. This training will make a man unselfish, and at the same time, be an excellent object lesson to his wife and children. The Hebrews in olden times used to give the first fruits to God. The first of everything should go to the poor. We have only a right to what remains. The poor are God's representatives. Anyone that suffers is his representative. Without giving, he who eats and enjoys eating, enjoys sin. Fifth, our duty to the lower animals. It is diabolical to say that all animals are created for men to be killed and used in any way man likes. It is the devil's gospel, not God's. Think how diabolical it is to cut them up to see whether a nerve quivers or not, in a certain part of the body. I am glad that in our country such things are not countenanced by the Hindus, whatever encouragement they may get from the foreign government they are under. One portion of the food cooked in a household belongs to the animals also. They should be given food every day. There ought to be hospitals in every city in this country for poor, lame, or blind horses, cows, dogs, and cats, where they should be fed and taken care of. Then there is Kalyana Purity, which comprises the following. Satya, truthfulness. He who is true, unto him the God of truth comes. Thought, word, and deed should be perfectly true. Next Arjava, straightforwardness, rectitude. The word means, to be simple, no crookedness in the heart, no double-dealing. Even if it is a little harsh, go straight forward, and not crookedly. Daya, pity, compassion. Ahimsa, not injuring any being by thought, word, or deed. Dana, charity. There is no higher virtue than charity. The lowest man is he whose hand draws in receiving. And he is the highest man whose hand goes out in giving. The hand was made to give always. Give the last bit of bread you have even if you are starving. You will be free in a moment if you starve yourself to death by giving to another. Immediately you will be perfect, you will become God. People who have children are bound already. They cannot give away. They want to enjoy their children, and they must pay for it. Are there not enough children in the world? It is only selfishness which says, I'll have a child for myself. The next is anavasada. Not desponding, cheerfulness. Despondency is not religion, whatever else it may be. By being pleasant always and smiling, it takes you nearer to God, nearer than any prayer. How can those minds that are gloomy and dull love? If they talk of love, it is false. They want to hurt others. Think of the fanatics. They make the longest faces, and all their religion is to fight against others in word and act. Think of what they have done in the past, and of what they would do now if they were given a free hand. They would deluge the whole world in blood tomorrow if it would bring them power. By worshipping power and making long faces, they lose every bit of love from their hearts. So the man who always feels miserable will never come to God. It is not religion, it is diabolism to say, I am so miserable. Every man has his own burden to bear. If you are miserable, try to be happy, try to conquer it. God is not to be reached by the weak. Never be weak. You must be strong. You have infinite strength within you. How else will you conquer anything? How else will you come to God? At the same time you must avoid excessive merriment, udasha, as it is called. A mind in that state never becomes calm. It becomes fickle. Excessive merriment will always be followed by sorrow. Tears and laughter are near kin. People so often run from one extreme to the other. Let the mind be cheerful, but calm. Never let it run into excesses, because every excess will be followed by a reaction. These, according to Ramanuja, are the preparations for Bhakti.